You see, I'd made this package for an object that had not been invented. It was about that sort of long, about that long. It's about that sort of about that wide, that sort of height. Sort of around the outside, it was like two layers of sort of like cardboard. Went around like that to make it sort of like not quite strong and sort of rigid. Top was cardboard as well, corrugated cardboard, and the underneath. Um, it sort of like came like in the two halves, right? Two halves that sort of like fitted really sort of um, quite closely together. Quite, it was like a tight fit. And around the edges, I'd used like some brown licky tape, brown licky tape to sort of make it really sort of quite tidy, quite nice and tidy sort of edges. And the sort of shape space inside was I used thinner cardboard because corrugated cardboard's a bit too sort of rigid. I used thinner cardboard because it's like sort of quite bendy, nice and bendy, and go around curves with it. And so these sort of like shaped curves in there, to go around these curves, I had to sort of make cut little tabs. They were about that sort of wide, about that sort of long. And you sort of cut one and glue it and stick it down, and cut and glue it and stick it down, and cut it and stick it down, and glue it and stick that down as well. And but the problem is like you use this Copydex and sort of glue would sort of ooze out and all over the place. And like when it dried and you sort of like rub it to sort of get it out, you sort of mess the edges up and you sort of start all over again. And I made about two of these sort of in a sort of shapes before I sort of got it right. Anyway, I insured my package for an object that had not been invented. I insured it for £307.40p, and that was the value, sort of, in currency here. And see, I was living in America at the time, and I needed to send it back to Birmingham, post it back to Birmingham for this event. Anyway, it sort of when it got to sort of UK customs, instead of like going around the sort of the join where the two halves sort of met, they sort of like cut with like a sharp knife like this and like through the sides, and like they came off in two bits here, and the top bit was gone and the bottom bit was like out, and sort of arrived at my doorstep in like a big sort of like a big plastic bag about that big, and around the top of it was like a piece of string with a label from Parcel Force and British Customs with apologies written on it. And the thing is, what they were looking for was that they wanted to see what was in the space between the inner shaped container and the outer container, and what they found was nothing. But I said that was the point. What was in it was a shaped nothing. But they didn't quite believe me, you see, and I wanted compensation. I wanted my £307.40p. Anyway, this sort of went on for months. It's like it went on for about 18 months, and I wrote something like sort of 15 letters. And but the problem was that they kept wanting proof that about this piece of work, and I said this was difficult because when proof that this existed, that the shape space existed. The difficulty was that when they sort of cut the sides and opened it, is that the shape space inside had sort of leaked out. It'd gone. Anyway, this sort of went on for a while, and I sort of sent them a photograph in the end of where the shape space, where the shape nothing was, and it's like, that's there, and it's a, there's nothing there. I mean, that's what's in it. There's nothing. But then, this sort of went on, and then I said, well, it was being sent to Birmingham for an exhibition, and the shape nothing was actually meant to be sold. It's for sale. And they thought, oh, well, therefore, they sort of agreed that, well, if it was for sale, it must have a value. And so they eventually relented, and I got my compensation, which I was pleased about. I mean, just to think, I was quite chuffed about this, that I'd got £307 and 40p for a space for an object, that had not yet been invented. And they sent me sort of quite, like a little check and a letter. But I mean, I was thinking I would have exhibited the the check as the final piece of work, but I needed the money. Well, anyway, is because the customs people had lost my shape nothing. I had to remake it. I had no proof. So anyway, I decided. I thought, well, what I better do this time is make a more permanent, more robust, more solid version of the idea. So I did. I've made this shed,